love the way you said there are enough product ideas here, and let me start from there. आदमी वही काम करता है जिसमें पैसा उसको बनने की उम्मीद होती है. Social causes, unfortunately, very few of us are motivated by, right? Even as corporations, government ने mandate नहीं किया होता तो हम लोग शायद CSR भी ना करते. So therefore, let me flip it around to say if we can make ecosystem safe, fraud prevention safe, a business idea, a success idea, then I think a bank will come together. A customer will get instead, आप उसको payment करने पे reward point देते हो, fraud report करने पे तो reward point नहीं दे रहे हो. So there has to be an incentive, a positive incentive for different people, different ecosystem players to come in, and then it starts becoming interesting. अगर business idea है, इसमें अगर पैसा बन सकता है, then more money will come in to create the ecosystem. So a collective responsibility, once it turns into a pool of money to be made collectively, everybody is interested. So this could be an interesting idea. This could be the eureka moment for me, and unlike the great man, I'm not going to run out naked, but this could be the eureka moment where a collective responsibility will get transiented into a collective profit making pool, and lot more people and ideas and brains will come into it.
So in fact, what you're hinting towards and saying out there is incentivization,
yes.
KPIs,
yes.
Right? How do we create performance indicators for the financial ecosystem in terms of being able to be more safe, in able to be encouraging reporting, and incentivizing that, right? And that itself could be a change.
Yes.
And maybe a scoring system, maybe a gradation system, maybe multiple things come out. So again, coming back and now taking the view of the regulator, right, or the governing body, right, or the government, right, they're also a stakeholder in this story, right, and yes, there is a public infrastructure, there is an ecosystem. You were a part of credit bureaus. If I go back to look at 2003 or during that time, there was an entire movement that came about that brought in a regulation to in fact look at safe and secure credit lending, and that's where probably credit scores concept came about, and then it became a regulation. Do you foresee a movement, or do you feel that a movement is needed from an ecosystem perspective to bring together another set of rules and regulations, keeping in mind incentivization, keeping in mind growth into this picture? And do you think the push has to come from the financial ecosystem, from the regulator, from the government? Where is the onus to move, and which direction should it go towards?
So credit bureaus, interestingly, were set up, or there are multiple countries in the world who still do not have a credit bureau. So the motivation to set up a credit bureau, if you keep going back to country to see, it's either regulation driven or it is a profit driven enterprise, right? That if we can lend responsibly, we can lend more, we can lend better, and we can collect better, and therefore we can repeat the cycle better. So if you see from the honorable regulator's point of view, they have been giving the right hints for the system to self correct. If you go back and keep reading the same newspapers that you are talking about, every day the newspaper will carry one statement from a very responsible person about the risks of KYC not being diligent, the risks of transaction monitoring not being followed in the way they should be. Now what happens is, the payments ecosystem, the banking ecosystem, which is a social ecosystem essentially now, right? It's because it touches every one of us. So let's stop calling it a financial system ecosystem. Let's start calling it social ecosystem, because that responsibility comes in when you are calling it social. So in the social ecosystem that all of us are a part of, because payments are a part of all of us. We have paid for this coffee, we have paid for the coming here, and it's a social ecosystem. In the social ecosystem, we are choosing to do the very basics which are required and not going a step above. And there are so many people in the social ecosystem now, from a payment aggregator to people processing. The quality of KYC, are we following it to the T? The management of each transaction going through the pattern recognition, right? That's called transaction monitoring. This pattern recognition, are the different people doing it properly, or are you choosing to ignore it because it's somebody else's problem? If the money has come from a particular bank account, I'm only processing it. The bank was responsible for KYC and transaction monitoring. This is what will kill the social ecosystem. And therefore, my point is, before we wait for the regulator to come with a stick, there are enough carrots. If there is money to be made in keeping the social ecosystem rich, enough and more people will come in now. And going back to the line that I started with, if it is not regulation driven, it will be far more innovative, because regulations tend to be, you write down the contours of it, right? You write the boundaries of it, and therefore innovation will be within that. If it is driven by a profit motive, right? And let's call the profit by its name, profit. Even in the social enterprise, if there's profit to be made, the way people will look at it will be far much more interesting. You will look at it in trying to make money, keeping the ecosystem safe, and keeping everybody happy in the ecosystem.
I think wonderful. I think you've really touched the right point, and spoken like a true business leader in saying that it has to be profit driven before regulation driven, right? And that brings me to a corner point where I'm junction where I'm thinking that as we work towards a community, right? The idea of a community, the idea of a platform where we come together, and a social responsibility to safeguard, and focusing and creating a profit-driven thought process there, right? What do you think is going to be, and rather, how would you translate this into individual motivation? For example, you will have people in growth, people in credit, people in risk, people in policy, people in IT, across these ecosystems, right? And at the end of the day, they're all part of the community, of the social movement, right? So from an individual motivation perspective, what do you think will be your message to everyone here in terms of why the collective responsibility is theirs, and what should be the way they look at it?
So building on the same theme, instead of calling it collective responsibility, let's call it collective responsibility to do more growth, to do more control of risk, to do more better use of technology. So they run with their own KPIs or KRAs, you said, right? Let's try and maximize that. Let's go in a manner where all of us in different sections or different phases are able to do it better by keeping the ecosystem safe. Then you are looking at the problem not as a charity, but as a profit making thing. If it comes at the top of the funnel, we are more serious about it. Otherwise, it is always somebody else's problem. So my pitch here, and using this platform, thank you for this, is to make the social ecosystem safer, because all of us will make more money out of it. Not because we are doing CSR, not because it is good to do, because we will continue to make more money out of it. We will continue to make great enterprises out of it if we keep it safer.
Thank you so much. My last question for the day, and to share, we are planning to launch a platform called FinSecure India as a collective measure from the ecosystem, where we are going to focus on people from the fintech ecosystem, again in growth and credit and risk. And as you said, we'll take the message of looking at growth, looking at sustainable future. What would be your word of advice and your thought to such a platform and their members and their ecosystem, that what should we keep in mind and how can we become powerful and better?
So let's look at it this way, that lot of data you will get from the ecosystem, but perspective you will get it from the guy who is impacted on the road. So keep a small window, if not a full door, for the guy who is getting impacted on the road, because the same problem statement will be mentioned very differently by the same guy. So if you see, data will tell you one story, but we need to record experiences as well, because that will make it much more comprehensive. So giving the opportunity to all people in the social ecosystem, not just the fintechs, not just the credit guy, not just the growth guy, but also the guy who's getting impacted. That will make it far more inclusive. It will not only become something which is a new product, it will become a owned product. It will become a something which everybody is talking about. So today, if everybody is talking about UPI, it has gone through the moment, and now it is not one particular organization, it is everybody's. All of us, when we go out of India and see a UPI related transaction, I think all of us are very proud of it. Similarly, for this, I want a moment led by you guys where people feel proud of how they have done their part in keeping the social ecosystem safe. That is the moment, and it will happen. Just a matter of time. And with people like you, probably it will happen faster than later.
Thank you so much. I think that's a very powerful message in terms of saying that the platform should not be just for the fintech people. It should be something that we also have that empathy, have that ability to capture information.
Lot of education, lot of what to avoid, lot of what to do in the moment of crisis when you have been impacted. So it has to have that education angle and going out in multiple forums.
Absolutely. Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you for coming in. It was a pleasure interacting, and I think lots to learn from this. Thank you so much.
Lots to learn from you guys. The way you look at the same problem very differently. I don't understand data, but I realize the impact of data. So happy, and every time we meet people like you, we learn. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.